A boot heel kicked open the front door. Two suitcases hit the porch, then a child's stuffed horse. A man's hat came flying out next and landed in the dirt. Two little girls clutched at their father's coat, faces white, not making a sound. He stood there, jaw locked, picking up the hat slow and deliberate. Behind him, a woman in pearls slammed the door so hard the porch lights rattled. The locks clicked. Then the bolt. Then the chain. Cole Hartman had just been thrown out of his dead wife's family home, with two 5-year-old twins and $53 to his name. The in-laws thought they were dumping a broken ranch hand and his two half-orphaned girls. What none of them knew was that the old envelope in his coat pocket would put every one of them outside that house within 30 days. Stay with me on this one. The motel room had 2 beds and a heater that rattled. Cole laid the girls down with their boots still on. Mia, the older twin by 4 minutes, kept asking when they were going home. Ella, the quieter one, hadn't said a word since the door slammed. Cole pulled the blanket over them both and sat on the edge of the bed, hands on his knees, jaw working. He was 34 years old. A ranch hand. Born in West Texas, raised on horses and hard winters. He'd married Sarah Whitfield 7 years ago at a courthouse, against her parents' wishes. Sarah was the only Whitfield daughter. Pretty, funny, the kind of woman who could ride a horse better than most men. She'd loved him for what he was. Her family had hated him for the same reason. 8 months ago, Sarah died on a wet stretch of state highway, driving home from one of Cole's rodeo events. A semi had jackknifed. She didn't make it. The Whitfields blamed Cole. Said if she hadn't been driving home from his foolishness, she'd still be alive. They moved Cole and the twins into the big house under the pretense of helping. But the help was always conditional. Margaret Whitfield watched everything, counted everything, whispered about everything. Tonight, she'd sat him down at the kitchen table and slid a stack of papers across the wood. Custody papers. Sign over the twins. Move on with your life. We'll provide for them. You can't. Cole had said no. Come. Once. That was when Harold Whitfield came in from the den. And then Margaret stood up. And then the boots and the suitcases were on the porch. Now here's the thing. Cole hadn't argued. He hadn't shouted. He just gathered the girls, walked out, and let the door hit the frame behind him. Some men fight loud. Cole fought quiet. He'd learned that from his grandfather, a man named Tom Hartman. Tom had died 2 years before. The two of them hadn't spoken much in the last decade. Tom didn't approve of rodeo. Didn't approve of cities. Didn't approve of much, really. But when he died, a small parcel of land and a sealed envelope had come to Cole through a country lawyer. Cole had stuffed the envelope in his coat pocket, meaning to read it later. Then Sarah died. Then the funeral. Then the grief. Then more grief. The envelope sat in the pocket. Forgotten. Until now. Cole reached into the coat hanging on the chair. Pulled it out. The paper was yellowed at the corners. His grandfather's handwriting on the front. 3 words. For Cole. Private. He looked at the girls. Both asleep. He looked at the rattling heater. Then he tore the envelope open. Inside 2 pieces of paper. The first was a hand-drawn map. A ridge in eastern Montana. A creek. A lone pine. An X. The second was a letter. Tom Hartman wrote like he talked. Plain. No wasted words. The letter said, Cole, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and you needed it bad enough to finally open the envelope. So things must be hard. Good. That means you'll respect what I'm about to tell you. Behind the lone pine on the parcel I left you, 3 feet down, you'll find a strongbox. What's inside is yours and only yours. I never told your mother. I never told the bank. I never told anyone. Banks fail. Wives leave. Children grow up. The only thing that stays is what you can dig up with your own hands. I trusted you with it because you're the only Hartman I ever met who didn't measure a man by his clothes. Don't waste it on appearances. You'll know what I mean when the time comes. Love, Grandpa. Cole read it twice, then a third time. He folded the letter back into the envelope, put the envelope back in the coat, sat very still for a long time. Outside the motel window, a semi rolled by on the highway. The girl's breathing was soft and even. Believe me, the man sitting on that motel bed didn't feel rich. He didn't feel saved. He felt one thing only. He felt curious. He looked at the map again. Eastern Montana. 3 days' drive. He folded it carefully, slid it into his shirt pocket, against his chest, where the twins could touch it if they curled up against him in the morning. Then he turned out the light. 3 days on the road. Cole drove with the twins in the back seat, trading stories with them about cows and clouds and the names of rivers. Mia started talking again somewhere in Wyoming. Ella followed somewhere in southern Montana. By the time the truck climbed the gravel road to the parcel, both girls were singing something they'd made up themselves about a horse named Biscuit. The land was 40 acres, mostly scrub and slope. A creek cut through the back third. And on a small ridge exactly where the map said, a single pine tree stood alone, leaning slightly east. Cole parked the truck, helped the girls out, carried a shovel on his shoulder. Mia asked what they were digging for. Cole said something Grandpa Tom left us. Ella asked if Grandpa Tom was a pirate. Cole almost laughed. First time in 8 months. He said maybe he was. The girls sat on a flat rock with their juice boxes. Cole took off his coat, folded it, set it down, and started to dig. The first foot was easy. The second foot was rocks and roots. The third foot was where the shovel hit something solid. Not a stone. Something flat. Something man-made. He cleared the dirt with his hands. A metal box, gray with age, locked shut with a heavy iron padlock. He lifted it out and set it on the grass. He looked at the girls. They looked back at him. He didn't have a key. He had a hammer in the truck. It took 6 swings to break the padlock. When the lid came up, neither twin made a sound. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, were rows and rows of gold coins. American eagles. Krugerrands. Some older. Coins Cole didn't recognize. And underneath them, 6 small bars of gold, each about the size of a chocolate bar, stamped with markings. Cole sat down on the dirt. Just sat. Mia whispered, "Daddy." "Are those real?" Cole said, "I think they are, baby." Ella said, "Is Grandpa Tom watching?" Cole said, "I think he is." He didn't tell anyone. Not yet. He drove the strongbox in the trunk down to a small town in Montana. Found a coin dealer who'd been in business 40 years. The old man counted, weighed, and tested every piece. He took 2 days to do it. He charged Cole a fee, gave him a receipt, and quoted him a number. $203,000. Give or take. Cole stared at the number on the slip. He folded it in half. He folded it again. He put it in the same pocket as the letter. Now here's what you have to understand about Cole Hartman. He didn't run out and buy a new truck. He didn't buy a watch. He didn't tell a soul. He thought about his grandfather's words. Don't waste it on appearances. So he didn't. He drove back south, slower this time. He found a small ranch property listed for sale outside a quiet town in eastern Wyoming. 3 bedrooms, an old barn, 20 acres, a paddock that needed mending. He paid in part with savings, in part with a loan, in part with the gold he'd quietly converted into clean money through the dealer. The total purchase price was $110,000. He kept the rest in a savings account he opened under just his name and the twins. He moved in on a Tuesday. Painted the front door blue because that was Sarah's favorite color. He bought used bunk beds for the girls. Built a swing set from Kit Lumber over a weekend. Enrolled Mia and Ella in the local elementary school, where the teachers were kind, and the bus came right to the end of the lane. 3 weeks went by. The girls started laughing again. Real laughter. The kind that came out without warning, like something breaking loose. Mia made a friend named Carter. Ella named one of the barn cats Princess Susan, and was offended when anyone shortened it. Cole patched fence. Bought 2 old horses cheap from a neighbor. Started taking the girls riding on Saturdays. He wasn't rich. He wasn't poor. He had a place. He had his children. He had quiet. On a Sunday morning in mid-October, Cole sat on his porch with a cup of coffee. The sun was low. The girls were on the swing set, taking turns pushing each other, arguing about whose turn it was, the way only sisters argue. Cole leaned back in the chair. Took a slow sip. The Whitfields, he thought, were a closed chapter. They'd thrown him out. He'd left. They didn't know where he was. They didn't know about the gold. They didn't know about the ranch. They didn't know about anything. For the first time in 8 months, Cole Hartman closed his eyes and felt like a man who had survived. He was wrong. The black SUV came up the gravel lane at 9:10 the next morning. Cole was unloading hay bales from the back of his truck when he saw it. He set down the bale. Wiped his hands on his jeans. The SUV stopped 20 feet from the porch. 3 doors opened. Brent Whitfield got out of the passenger side. Brent was Sarah's older brother. 6'3", blonde, blue-eyed, wearing a coat that cost more than Cole's truck. Behind him stepped a man in a deputy sheriff's uniform. And behind him, a woman in a navy blue suit holding a leather folder. Brent walked up to Cole, smiling the way a man smiles when he's enjoying himself. He said, "Cole." "Long time." Cole said, "How'd you find me?" Brent shrugged. Said, "Private investigator." "Took 2 weeks." "You weren't hard." Then he looked past Cole. Looked at the house. Looked at the swing set. Said, "Nice place." "Where'd a ranch hand get the money for a place like this?" Cole didn't answer. The woman in the suit stepped forward. Identified herself as a family services representative. Then she handed Cole an envelope. Inside was a court order. Margaret and Harold Whitfield had filed an emergency petition for guardianship of Mia and Ella Hartman. The petition alleged that Cole was an unstable transient, unfit to provide care, and that the children should be removed from his custody pending a full hearing. The hearing was in 9 days. Cole read it twice. Then he looked up at Brent. Brent smiled wider. Said, "Mom said you'd run." She was right. "Running's all you ever did, Cole." Cole said, "I'm not running." Brent said, "You will be." Now this is where the whole thing changed. Up until that moment, the Whitfields had been an ugly memory. People who'd hurt him. People who'd hurt the girls. People who, in his mind, were behind him. He could live with that. But this was different. This was them coming for his children. The deputy and the family services woman left after 15 minutes. Brent lingered. He walked over to the swing set, which was empty. The girls were inside watching cartoons. He gave one of the swings a push. He said, pretty toys for 2 little girls who should be at our place by Christmas. Cole said one thing. Said it quiet. He said, "Get off my land." Brent went. Cole sat on the porch for a long time after the SUV disappeared. Then he went inside, kissed the girls on the tops of their heads, told them to keep watching cartoons. And he picked up the phone and called the best family lawyer in 3 counties. Her name was Diane Beck. She'd been practicing for 22 years. She charged $500 an hour. Cole told her he could pay it. She told him to come to her office in the morning with every document he had. The first hearing was a disaster. The Whitfield's lawyer was polished and expensive. He'd brought 4 witnesses. Neighbors, a former employer of Cole's, a woman who claimed she'd seen Cole intoxicated and aggressive at a feed store. The witnesses were rehearsed. Their stories had the slick smoothness of story that had been written down and memorized. The judge, a man named Willis, listened with his chin in his hand and didn't look at Cole once. Diane Beck cross-examined. She poked holes. The feed store woman couldn't say what month she'd seen Cole. The former employer had been fired by Cole, not the other way around. But Judge Willis was already leaning. You could see it in his shoulders. At the recess, Diane pulled Cole aside. She said, "He's bought." Cole said, "What?" She said, "Willis. The Whitfields know him. He owes them. I'd bet my license on it." Cole said, "What do we do?" Diane said, "We went on facts so clean he can't ignore them. Or we get him recused. Either way, we need more." That night, Cole drove home at 1 in the morning. The twins were asleep at his neighbor's house. He sat at his kitchen table with the receipt from the coin dealer in front of him. The deed to the land. The bank statements. The letter from his grandfather. If you're still with me on this story, do me one favor and hit that subscribe button. We're nowhere close to the end. Cole had been hiding the gold. Hiding it on instinct. Don't waste it on appearances, his grandfather had said. He'd taken it to mean don't show off. Don't flash it. But maybe the old man had meant something else too. Maybe it meant don't let appearances be all you fight with. Cole called Diane the next morning. Said he had documents. Said he had assets. Said he could prove a stable home, a stable income, a clean inheritance. Said he wanted to bring it all to the second hearing. Diane was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Cole, how much money are we talking about?" Cole said, "Around 200,000. Plus the ranch. Plus the land in Montana." Diane said, "Cole, that changes everything." Then she said, "And it changes something else too. If they didn't know about the money before, they're going to find out now. Are you ready for that?" Cole said, "They've been digging. They tried to access Sarah's old account last week." Diane said, "How do you know?" Cole said, "The bank called me. Said someone with a power of attorney from before her death tried to look at the records." Diane was quiet again. Then she said, "Cole, they're not just trying to take your kids. They're trying to take your money. And they don't even know what they don't know." Cole said, "What do you mean?" Diane said, "I mean, if they're this desperate, something's wrong on their end. Something money-shaped." Cole sat back in his chair. For the first time, he started to wonder why a wealthy ranching family would risk a custody fight over 2 children they'd never wanted in the first place. He had 8 days until the second hearing. He started making phone calls. The phone calls Cole made over the next 8 days went to people his grandfather had known. Old men. Cattle brokers. A retired loan officer in Cheyenne. A friend of Tom's who'd worked the Whitfield Ranch as a foreman 30 years back, before quitting because Margaret kept short paying the hands. The picture that came back was not what Cole expected. The Whitfield Ranch was leveraged to the eyeballs. Harold had been borrowing against the land for 10 years to fund Margaret's lifestyle. The dinner parties, the trips, the renovations on the big house, the horses they bought just to look at. The cattle prices had cratered the previous spring. A major beef contract had walked. The bank, the same one Sarah had once worked at, was about to call in 3 loans totaling almost $2 million. The Whitfields weren't rich. They were broke. They'd been broke for a long time. They were holding it together with appearances. And here's where it clicked for Cole. Don't waste it on appearances. His grandfather hadn't been talking about Cole. He'd been describing the Whitfields. Tom had known them. Tom had seen them coming a mile away. The reason they wanted the twins was simple. Mia and Ella had been named as contingent beneficiaries on a trust Sarah had set up before she died. A small trust. About $40,000. Not life-changing, but enough to plug a hole. And if the Whitfields had legal guardianship, they had access. It wasn't about the children. It had never been about the children. Cole walked into the second hearing with Diane Beck on his right, and a folder 6 inches thick on the table in front of him. The Whitfields sat across the aisle. Harold looked thinner than Cole remembered. Margaret was wearing the same pearls she'd worn the night she shut the door. Brent was at the back of the gallery, arms folded. Diane Beck did not raise her voice once. She put the deed to the ranch on the projector. The bank statements, the receipts from the coin dealer, with the gold's origin documented through Tom Hartman's estate. The school enrollment records for Mia and Ella. Letters from the twins' teachers. A statement from a child psychologist who'd interviewed both girls and reported a stable, loving home. Then she put the Whitfield's bank statements on the projector. She'd subpoenaed them. 3 loans in default. A foreclosure notice dated 2 weeks before the custody petition was filed. She said to Judge Willis, "Your Honor, the petitioners are not seeking guardianship of these children for the welfare of the children. They are seeking it for the assets attached to these children. I'd like to enter a motion." Judge Willis cleared his throat. He looked for the first time at Cole. He looked at the gallery. He looked at Brent. Then he set down his pen. He said, "Petition denied. Custody remains with the father. Court is adjourned." Margaret Whitfield made a sound. Not a word, but a sound. Harold put his hand on her arm. Brent walked out of the courthouse without looking at anyone. The Whitfields' lawyer dropped them the next morning. He hadn't been paid in 2 months, and he'd just lost a case he'd been told was a sure thing. The bank called the loans the following Tuesday. The foreclosure ran in the local paper a week after that. The Whitfield Ranch, 640 acres, cattle, equipment, the big house, was going on the auction block. Cole read the announcement at his kitchen table. The girls were eating cereal. Mia was telling Ella about a frog she'd seen on the way to the bus. Cole called a man he'd met through Diane Beck, a real estate attorney. He set up a small holding company under a name that wasn't his. He arranged financing through the gold he hadn't yet sold and through a loan that the bank, eager to clear the Whitfield property off their books, was happy to extend. He bought the Whitfield Ranch at auction. Cash and financing. Fair market value. He didn't try to lowball it. He didn't need to. The day the deed transferred, Cole drove out to the big house alone. The girls were at school. He left the truck at the gate and walked up the long drive. Margaret was on the porch. She had a suitcase next to her. The pearls were gone. Her hair wasn't done. Without the makeup, she looked older than she'd ever looked in the kitchen the night she'd thrown him out. She watched him come up the steps. She said, "It was you." Cole said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "How?" Cole said, "Grandpa Tom left me a piece of land." There was something on it. That's all I'll say. Margaret's hands started to shake. She said we didn't know. Cole said, I know you didn't. She said if we'd known. Cole said, I know that too. He took an envelope from his coat pocket. Different envelope this time. White. Clean. He set it on the porch railing between them. He said there's a check inside. Above market for personal belongings. So you don't have to leave with nothing. Take what you want from the house. Furniture. Photos. Sarah's things. I want every photograph of Sarah in the family album. The rest is yours. Margaret stared at the envelope. She said, why? Cole thought about that for a moment. Then he said, because Sarah loved you. Even when I couldn't figure out why. And she'd want her girls to know their grandmother had a place to land. He turned, walked down the porch steps, got back in his truck. He didn't look back. 6 months later, the ranch had a new name on the gate. Hartman Land and Cattle. Plain letters, white paint, no flourishes. Cole had hired 4 hands. 3 of them were men Margaret had let go over the years for one petty reason or another. They were good with horses, good with fence, and they showed up on time. The 4th was a young woman named Kara who'd grown up rodeoing in Wyoming and could ride anything with 4 legs. The herd was small. Cole was building it slow. He was running the books himself in the evenings, with Diane Beck on retainer for anything he didn't understand. Diane had become something close to a friend. She came out for Sunday dinners now and then. The girls liked her because she always brought peppermints in her coat pocket. Mia had turned 6. Ella had turned 6 12 minutes later. They had birthday cakes. 2 of them because Ella had insisted. They rode their ponies to school, sometimes if the weather was good. They were enrolled in 4-H. They'd both decided they were going to be veterinarians, which lasted about 2 months before Mia switched to firefighter and Ella stayed firm on horse doctor. Cole sat on the porch of the big house most evenings, after the chores, with a coffee and a coat and the same envelope in his pocket he'd carried for 2 years. He read the letter sometimes. Don't waste it on appearances. He understood it differently now than he had in the motel room. His grandfather hadn't been giving him advice about money. He'd been giving him advice about people. Don't measure them by their porches. Don't measure them by their pearls. Don't measure yourself that way either. He thought about Sarah a lot. He talked to her sometimes out loud when no one was around. He told her about the girls. He told her what they'd said that day. He told her he was sorry he couldn't have stopped what happened on the highway. He told her he hoped she could see them. He didn't know if she could. But he kept talking. On a Tuesday in April, a truck pulled up the lane. A working truck. Dented door. Mud on the wheels. Cole watched it come. It stopped near the porch. The driver got out. It was Brent. Brent had lost weight. His coat was an old canvas one, not the expensive one. He'd cut his hair shorter. His hands were calloused. He'd been working somewhere, doing something with his hands. Cole could tell at a glance. Brent walked up to the porch. Stopped at the bottom step. He said, Cole. Cole said, Brent. Brent said, I came to ask for work. Cole didn't say anything for a moment. Just looked at him. Brent kept going. Said, I've been on a ranch up in South Dakota the last 4 months. Hand work. I'm good with horses. I've been clean off everything. I'm not asking for a handout. I'll do whatever you've got. Bunkhouse is fine. Cole said, how's your mother? Brent said, she's living in a small place in town. Dad's got a job at the feed store. They're all right. Different, but all right. Cole nodded. Brent said, I'd like to see the girls sometimes. If you'd let me. I won't push it. I won't even talk to them till you say I can. Cole stood up from the porch, came down 2 of the steps, so he was eye level with Brent on the 3rd. He looked at him for a long time. He said, we start at 6. Lunch at 12. Done at 5. Pays the same as everyone else. You don't get 1 cent more because you used to be family. You get 1 cent less because you used to be family. You'll see why I'm being fair. Bunkhouse is the building behind the barn. Linens are clean. Brent's eyes went wet. He said, yes, sir. Cole said, don't call me sir. Call me Cole. Brent nodded. He went back to his truck. He drove around the side of the barn to the bunkhouse, where the other hands would meet him and show him where to put his things. Cole sat back down on the porch. The girls came out a few minutes later. Mia was carrying a stick that she said was a sword. Ella was carrying a smaller stick that she said was a backup sword. Mia climbed onto Cole's lap. Ella climbed onto the arm of the chair. Both of them had grass stains on their knees. Mia said, Daddy. Who was that? Cole said, your Uncle Brent. Ella said, is he gonna stay? Cole said, if he does the work, yes. Mia thought about that. Then she said, is he the one who was mean to us? Cole said he was. People can get less mean over time. We'll see. Ella said, if he gets mean again, can we make him sleep in the barn? Cole almost laughed. He said, we'll talk about it. The sun was going down behind the ridge. The horses were calling each other from the paddock. One of the hands rang the dinner bell from the kitchen window. Cole sat very still for a moment. He felt the envelope in his coat pocket. The old one. The one his grandfather had written. He'd carry it for the rest of his life. He'd never throw it away. A boot heel had once kicked open a door, and 2 suitcases had landed on a porch. That had been the start. This was the meaning of it. He picked up Mia. He held out his hand to Ella. He said, let's go eat, girls. And the 3 of them walked inside their own house, on their own land, with the gate closed behind them, and the lights warm in the windows, and nobody coming for them ever again.